Good morning, and welcome to the induction ceremony for the 2013 class of the Magic the Gathering Pro Tour Hall of Fame. This year's crop of Hall of Famers is an unprecedented bounty made up entirely of Pro Tour champions, something no previous harvest can claim. They also come into the Hall on top of their games. These are three players who you could all expect to see playing on Sunday, one or all three of them. One player is renowned for his mastery of limited, yet he's won a Pro Tour playing constructed. Another is a Masters Series winner from a bygone era who recently took down a Grand Prix. And our third is one of the most beloved figures in the history of the game, while also being one of the game's most dominant players. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my profound honor to present to you the 2013 class of the Magic the Gathering Pro Tour Hall of Fame. The United States' Ben Stark has a career told in two parts. After starting out in the early days of the JSS, he made the jump to the Pro Tour with a debut in London 2000. It was not long before he was rattling off a string of finishes that left people wondering if he was going to be one of the game's greats.
He was like, 9th, 13th, 48th, 7th, 6th, back-to-back top 8s, and then 2 events later he was gone.
He left the Pro Tour and had to fight his way back several years later.
He actually won back-to-back Pro Tour qualifiers in Orlando, and it was great to see him come back around.
His return saw him bring his top 8 total to 4, highlighted by his win at Pro Tour Paris.
Ben is sort of my kryptonite, if you will. We've played 6 times now. Both in PT Paris, which we both top 8'd, Ben won, and at GP Indianapolis, we both top 8'd and Ben won.
He is one of the game's most influential limited players.
He just wants good games, and he wants to play against good players. He wants to make the worst players as good as him.
Stark teaches Channel Fireball how to draft.
He's responsible for the success of a lot of other people, besides just himself, because he's very willing to share his knowledge.
But he has demonstrated mastery in both limited and constructed en route to winning multiple trophies.
Ben's a bit modest about, his constructed ability. He's obviously, in-game constructed play. He's absolutely, one of the best in the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the United States, Ben Stark. The United States' William Jensen started his Magic career out as a JSS player from New England.
I was actually there when I was probably 16, he was 15 or so, when he actually got the nickname Baby Huey.
He quickly moved up the professional ranks with his debut at Pro Tour Rome in 1999.
His mental game of Magic is on another level, and always has been, even when he was a kid.
But I could pretty quickly tell that he was really excited about how to get better and that he was a really good, strong player.
He established himself as one of the game's elite players, earning trophies at the Grand Prix level and in the first ever Masters Series in New York.
Jason in this unwinnable matchup at just the end of this, 32-person Murderer's Row tournament.
He ultimately claimed Pro Tour victory in Boston as a member of the Brockefellers in the 4th top 8 of his career.
Upsetting the super team of Phoenix Foundation headed by Kai Buddha, winning with Brock Parker and Matt Lindy.
With a groundswell of support from the game's best players, Jensen gained momentum with Hall of Fame voters.
His ability to process 6 people's cards at once, is a very enviable skill. The team that I was on, we had 3 smart guys that could each take care of their own corner of the universe, but Billy knew what was going on at the whole table.
Never before have I met somebody who knows not only so much about the game of Magic, but about everything it takes to win a Magic tournament.
I'm very proud to think of him being one of the kind of the pillars of the game.
He quickly justified their support with another Grand Prix title earlier this season at Grand Prix Oakland.
In many respects, he was the best parts of Kai and Dirk and Marco, all wrapped into one person.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the United States, William Jensen. the United States' Luis Scott-Vargas made his PT debut at San Diego during the 2004 season, when he became one of the first players to make that transition from Magic Online superstar to Pro Tour player.
Just seeing Luis's path from Magic Online to the Pro Tour inspired me that I could do the same thing.
His first tastes of success came when he made back-to-back U.S. national teams, but Pro Tour triumph was not far behind.
Me watching him play games made me a lot better. And we definitely did play games, and he let me beat him maybe a couple times. I don't know.
He broke through with a flourish at Pro Tour Berlin when he won the whole tournament.
He's down 0-2, doesn't matter. Rattles off the 3 wins he needs, goes on to win the Pro Tour. I mean, those of us who were paying attention already knew this guy was one of the best, but it really just sort of proved it once and for all.
4 more Pro Tour top 8s and countless money finishes followed in that trophy's wake.
She totally is the poster child of, oh, I need to win about 80% of the time in constructed and about 80% of the time in limited. That is an incredible feat.
He is the cornerstone of the Channel Fireball Super Team, which changed the face of professional Magic.
This is a pretty easy hit for me.
Yeah, definitely hit for me.
Genesis Wave could have been mythic too.
I'm kind of surprised. He makes Magic videos, writes Magic articles, does Magic commentary. He's really the total package.
Cards, and sometimes you just can't counter their first threat and you die.
I actually think his voting total is a little bit low, given kind of what he's been meant to the game.
Even if he didn't have the accomplishments that he has in Magic, which are among the best of all time, he would still be a first ballot Hall of Famer to me.
He is one of the most beloved figures in the Magic community.
He knows just intuitively the correct play at all times. It's insane. He can just come into like this super complicated board state and just know exactly what to do.
As well as one of the most dominant players over the last 10 years.
A Pro Tour champion, 16-0, the spiritual leader of one of the great teams of all time. I don't think I've ever had an easier vote to make than for Luis Scott-Vargas.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the United States, Luis Scott-Vargas. Ladies and gentlemen, your 2013 Magic the Gathering Pro Tour Hall of Fame class. That concludes our ceremony. Thank you for watching. The draft for Pro Tour Theros will begin shortly at 10 a.m.
Fantastic stuff. One of the real highlights of the Magic year. It's so great to see, well, I was tempted to say the culmination of a journey, but Zach, we could see this weekend the first someone with a ring on winning that Pro Tour.
Well, and that's what's so exciting about the Magic Hall of Fame, Rich, is that these guys can still play, and in fact still do, and in fact are still really, really good.
Yeah, I think this is the best chance they've ever had of going straight from a Hall of Fame ceremony into winning the whole thing.
Right.
With respect to people like Palavina, Dama DeRosa, and Kenji Samura and all these great players from years gone by.
Right.
But wow, what a great class for the Hall of Fame. Now, to business, it's Pro Tour Theros, 16 rounds across 2 days, followed by a top 8 best 3 out of 5. How do you get to be here? If you're just starting out on your Magic journey, let's look at the ways that you can be part of a future Pro Tour. This one, it's too late because you're watching at home. But for the next one, Born of the Gods or Journey into Nyx, this is how you do it. Let's start off with actually what makes up the bulk of the field. Roughly 50% of the field do this by winning a Pro Tour qualifier. Zach, super nuts and bolts. What's a PTQ?
A PTQ is basically a local tournament that is a qualifier tournament. It's usually held sponsored, either by a game store or by a tournament organizer. It's in a venue probably very close to home. You win one of these, you get an invite here, you get a plane ticket, you get flown out here no matter what part of the world you live in.
Okay.
And that's usually the way that most people get their start on the Pro Tour.
Okay, and we have 4 Pro Tours a season, and Overall, there are 800 Pro Tour qualifiers, so 200 per PT, and they're spread all over the world. We have 71 countries in our World Magic Cup each year, and the PTQs are sort of spread between those regions. Not every country gets a qualifier every single season, but 800 PTQs across the year, and anyone can go to those. So if you've been playing Friday Night Magic for, I don't know, 3-6 months maybe, and you've got a constructed deck you like, you can go along to a PTQ. If you've just started with Theros, well, there are PTQs right now for Born of the Gods that are Theros sealed deck followed by Theros draft. So in a sense, everyone's sort of at the same starting point as you are. So that's PTQs. Now, strictly between ourselves, it's quite tough to win a Pro Tour if you're a PTQ winner. And that's because the other half of the field is stacked with the best of the best of the best. And here's how they stack up. So what have we got next? Well, we have Grand Prix, the Grand Prix Elite. It says high finish at Grand Prix based on attendance. So in the preceding season, Zach, we're looking at not just the winners, but then people who make top 4 if it's small, but top 8 if it sort of goes above. I think it's 1,200 players and above.
Right, and those are players that, I mean, have made it to the top of a really large tournament already. A lot of consecutive back-to-back rounds. They've learned how to play over 2 days of Magic, which is someone kind of trying to come back into the pro scene. I've forgotten how hard that was to play your 14th consecutive match. So those are people that have played in a tournament like a Pro Tour, and a lot of the times people find breakout Pro Tour performances after a big GP debut.
Can you talk me through a couple of players who are sort of right at the pinnacle of that GP group this time around?
Well, I mean, I think the first person you have to talk about is actually Neil Oliver, who won the largest Magic tournament ever.
So this is Grand Prix Las Vegas with 4,450 odd players?
Yeah, I mean, a number of players that I mean, it's hard to count. You know, I can't imagine playing in a Magic tournament that big. You also have Josh McClain, who kind of struck up a rivalry with Reed Duke, Player of the Year finalist. He got second at GP Miami.
Beaten by Reed Duke.
Beaten by Reed
in
Duke.
the final,
And then got his revenge at GP Detroit, where he was able to defeat Reed Duke the second time around.
So it turns out, particularly if you're in North America, it's quite hard to even make the final because Josh McClain and Reed Duke have got those locked up, it seems. So they're your Grand Prix high finishers. Now, it's really tough to do well on the Pro Tour. It's incredibly hard to make the top 8. But sometimes if you just fall short, there's still a big reward, not just cash, not just pro points. If you make the top 25 of the previous Pro Tour, which in this case is Pro Tour Dragon's Maze from San Diego, well, the top 25 from there get to have another go at it. They get to come back and they say, yeah, okay, I didn't quite make the Sunday showdown, but I get to have another go. Let's move on and let's take a look at the top 4 finishing teams from the World Magic Cup. That is the next group that we have. And Zach, tell us about who qualifies by that route.
Well, we saw actually Team France won the whole thing. And of course, the captain of that was Raphael Levy. He's enjoying a luxury of riches as he's qualified through the Hall of Fame already.
Right, sure.
So, you know, he's definitely, no matter how you slice it. We have the Hungarian team. Actually, a lot of stars there. We have Thomas Nog out of that team. We've got, of course, the Czech Republic, captained by Pro Tour Return to Ravnica winner Stanislav Sivka.
Sure.
And then actually the Icelandic team. All 3 of them, or I guess 4 of them, qualifying out of that tournament as well.
Yeah, and BDM, I know, is going to talk extensively on air about the Icelandic team because he has a story to tell. I won't spoil it now, but it's very, very sweet and lovely. All right, now the next group are the Magic Online qualifiers. Now, there's 2 sets of these. Some of them are Pro Tour qualifier winners online, the 16 of those, but then you also have the Magic Online contestants, either between 2012 or 2013. So let's move on again. You see the top 4 there, and you win a Magic Online Championship Series tournament. And again, some terrific players here.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to look at Dmitry Budakov, who actually made the Players' Championship last year. You know, we saw when Reed Duke qualified out of Magic Online, kind of a disappointing performance at the Players' Championship. Not so for Budakov. He really kind of finished in the middle of the pack, put up a really, really solid performance. And then, of course, David Kaplan.
From Canada?
From Canada, yeah, of the Magic Online Championship Series.
Yeah, and also someone who has been responsible for tuning a Pro Tour winning deck for Alexander Haynes, Pro Tour Avacyn Restored. Now you get the real big guns. These are the people who are members of the Pro Players Club. platinum, gold, and silver. Okay, so the way these work, the platinums are the best of the best of the best. They get flown around the world. They get their airfare. They get their hotel accommodation. They get appearance fees. They get buys at Grand Prix. It's pretty sweet to be a platinum pro. That's kind of your top 20 players in the world. And unsurprisingly, quite a lot of Hall of Famers who are currently playing are also platinum status. Then you get your gold players. Gold players are often Pro Tour champions. You get people, and people with multiple Pro Tour top 8s. You get, for example, Dennis Rashid, who had 2 top 8s in 2012. You get people like Lukas Jaklovsky, who was top 8 from the Czech Republic Worlds 2010. So up against a gold pro, all it really means is that maybe they didn't have a perfect season last time around.
Right, or they weren't able to fly around the world and attend a lot of different Grand Prix.
Sure.
But usually if you're playing against a gold pro, they know their way around the game of Magic.
Don't they just? And then you have the silvers. Now, the silvers are really interesting because I kind of think of them as silver bullets because they have one shot. They got enough pro points last year to be very competitive on a global scene like this, but not quite enough to say, sure, you're on for the year. For them, this is their one Pro Tour, and they have to do well here. And then if they do well here, they can chain that into the next Pro Tour, Born of the Gods, do well there. Then they're starting to get the points they need to be gold or platinum for the next pro season. But the silver pro, Zach, it's... How tough is it when you are down to your one shot?
Yeah, I mean, being a silver pro is, you're always kind of on the cusp of tremendous success. We didn't have the terminology back when I was pro touring very much, but I was always around to like 15, 16 pro points a year for a given season. What's hard about that is so many of the superstars, the platinum pros, are on these huge testing teams where you have 15, 16 of the best players of the world knowing that you're going to have an amazing deck, knowing that you're going to have the draft format figured out. For a lot of silver pros, an individual pro tour is their chance to make that leap, to put up a huge finish and get on one of these giant teams, or to form a team of their own to really remain competitive against the Channel Fireballs and the Star Cities of the world.
For sure. Now, there's one more group who are allowed to play at Pro Tours, and it turns out that they're the Hall of Famers. That's one of the little perks for being in the Magic Hall of Fame. And these are the greats of all time. They're voted in each year. They have to reach a certain threshold, maximum of 5. This year we had 3 come in, and they are allowed to play at every Pro Tour. Now, we often see, Zach, some players have left the game. Some people are very busy with work. We see them maybe once a year, maybe once every couple of years. There are a lot of Hall of Famers in attendance, quite a few of which we wouldn't have necessarily expected to see.
Yeah, we're seeing Camille Cornelissen, a back-to-back Pro Tour finalist, come back. Bram Snepvangers, Ule Rade, Antoine Ruel, a lot of the European Hall of Fame members. I'm also really excited to see my good friend Frank Karsten back away from the coverage side, working with Team Channel Fireball for this event.
Yeah, I'm wondering whether Frank's got any hair left, because Frank is a great organizer. He's one of the great analysts and theorists and organizers in World Magic. And he spent a week with Channel Fireball. I'll be interested to see how Frank's nerves are holding up. But that is how you qualify for this. Thanks very much to Zach Hill. Zach's going to head off because you're in the booth for the draft. And I'm delighted to say that I am about to be joined by 3 members of the Magic the Gathering Hall of Fame. And not just random members of the Hall of Fame. Turns out it's the people who got inducted this time around. So they're going to come on in, come on round, boys, come round the set and join us at the desk. Let's, here they come, Murderers Row. Dear Lord, I've never seen so many seats at a Magic tournament. Here they are, Ben Stark, Louis Scott-Vargas, William Jensen, here they come. And we're going to have a nice chat with these gentlemen. Yeah. Quick quiz, who's the worst Magic player at the table? It's me. Right, so, gentlemen, how was that for you? Ben, what was that like?
It was pretty cool. I mean, saw a lot of old pictures of me when I was really young and kind of scraggly, but it was really awesome to have all your friends and your family here, you know.
Yeah, I think people sort of tend to imagine that Magic players don't have friends and family other than testing teams. So it's kind of fun to actually see mums and dads and sisters and aunts. Billy, who did you have with you this time?
My mother, my father, my sister, and my aunt.
Yeah, and that's got to be pretty cool for them as well to see that. And Louise, how about you? Who was with you?
I brought my wife.
Fantastic. And is this the first time she's been to a Pro Tour?
No. She came to, basically when we have a sweet location, she came to Chiba, to Rome, to Hawaii, San Juan. So.
Okay. And so obviously she'll be at Atlanta next year.
Hawaii, actually a couple Pro Tours later.
Oh, okay, fair enough. All right. So let's look at sort of right back at the start, why Magic? Luis, start with you. Where does Magic come into your life?
I learned to play when I was 11. My friend bought a couple starter decks of Revised and a couple packs of The Dark, and then we just played kind of muddled through, didn't really know the rules. And then I kind of got hooked. I mean, I just kept playing from there. And even when I wasn't always playing, I was actually always reading like Pro Tour coverage, and I really got into that, sort of thing.
So were you attracted to the competition, the players? Was it the artwork, or was it the sort of constant voyage of, if you like, intellectual discovery in the game?
Kind of like Ben, the flavor of the game is really what drew me into it to begin with.
Wow. I'll give you a right of reply to that.
But no, I mean, initially it was like the flavor and just like the fact that like it looked really cool. Eventually it became the competition. That's kind of what it's been like for most of Magic.
For sure. Billy, how about you?
I started playing, in like 95 when I was 13 or 14 at summer camp. And yeah, definitely at first, it was something I started just to fit in with all the other kids playing even. And then I definitely was attracted to the fantasy element, dragons and demons and whatever. But like Luis, after that, it became about the competition, and then even after that, it became more about the people.
Were you already a gamer at that point? Because I believe you played quite a lot of chess as a young child with Dad.
That's true. I always did like to play games, but I never really did anything competitively, went to tournaments or anything like that. But I guess stuff between my father and myself got pretty competitive.
Yeah, and would he let you win?
Never.
Okay, so that's a good tip. Parents at home, you want your boy to get a Hall of Fame ring, don't let him win at chess. Ben, how about you?
Very similar to theirs. I mean, I was never really into the flavor of the fantasy element that much, but I love a good game, always have. Like when I was a little kid, I used to play all the board games all the time with all my friends. And then when I started 6th grade, I was 11, there was Magic, and I played a couple of games because my friends introduced me to it, and it was the best. It was so much better than all the other games, so I just played it from there forward.
Give me a couple of people who've been important to you in your Magic journey, perhaps someone who specifically Magic related and someone else who perhaps is less apparent, not necessarily a testing
Sure, no problem. I mean, as far as Magic related, there's probably like 2 people that were like the most influential on me. The first would be Antonino De Rosa.
All right.
I won my first PTQ when I was 15, and it was for London, 1999. And my parents were like, kind of iffy on letting me go. Like they might let me go, but they weren't that comfortable with it.
Sure.
Antonino was a couple years older. He had flown back and forth from Italy all the time since he's from there and was living in Florida. So then he went and won the very next PTQ in Florida. And then my parents were very comfortable letting me go with him. So I was able to go from there forward. And it was his idea that we just start going to all the Grand Prix and stuff. He kind of realized that like in South Florida, we weren't going to get better because there weren't really great players. But if we started traveling and playing against all the good players, doing drafts against Huey and Finkel and all the best players then, and going and playing against them in Grand Prix, we could probably get to that level, or at least close to it, hopefully.
Okay, and away from Magic?
Away from Magic would be my parents for sure. They were like so super supportive. Like I look back at it and I can't even believe the things they did. Like my dad drove me to JS and stayed with me for the weekend up in Orlando. That's like a 4-hour drive. They drove me to PTQs in like Atlanta and Charlotte, like 10, 12-hour drives when I was a kid. They just went so far above and beyond for me to like play this game.
Billy, same question to you. Magic, not Magic?
In Magic, I guess the earliest was probably David Humphreys, I'd say.
Okay, who now works inside R&D for Wizards?
Correct. Yeah, when I was growing up, the local stuff in Boston, he was the guy who I always thought he was the best player in the area. So I always tried to watch him and learn from him, and he was always very friendly, very nice guy. He'd talk to me, we'd play, we tested together for several Pro Tours, and I really think I learned a lot from him in my youth. And for non-Magic, certainly, I guess it's sort of Magic, but not, I don't know. Tom Shea, the owner of TJ Collectibles, the store where I grew up playing.
Right.
He really went above and beyond to like help me out, to like make my Magic dreams come true, in terms of like, I would go from school every day to the store.
Right.
And then he would close the shop and drive me home every night.
Oh,
which
wow.
was not, it wasn't particularly close either. It was 15 minutes each way.
Sure. Yeah, 3 hours a week, it kind of adds up,
exactly.
Right?
And he would help me out with cards, sleeves, whatever. So I guess, I've always been grateful for that.
That kind of reminded me. I said there was two because my Dave Humphrey, so to speak, would have been Neil Reeves.
Right.
For Magic, he kind of took me under his wing when we were doing a lot of drafts back then, and kind of watching him play and seeing him draft and playing with him all the time. I kind of got to learn next level Magic, waiting on your spells and playing really good. I just forgot, and I kind of wanted to.
Sure, absolutely.
He deserves the credit.
One of the best limited players of all time.
One of the best players of all time. I mean, he may not have played a lot of Constructed, but when he knew how to play his deck, limited or Constructed, he's an amazing Magic player.
Luis, how about you?
So for Magic, I guess the guys I lived with in Northern California, Paul Cheon being the name everyone will recognize, since we had a lot of success together, and then our roommates Matt Benjamin and Ira Owen, just where we all got to play a lot of Magic, we all got to hang out, we were all going to school at the same time, so that was a pretty huge influence on me. And then it shifted into the team with David Ochoa and Josh Sutter-Layton kind of to start with, and then all the rest of Team Channel Fireball. We got Ben and Ifro and just there's too many people named Paulo, all these people.
Sure.
They're the guys who kind of made it so we all got better together. We all had much better results, and teaming up was, I think, beneficial to everyone.
For sure.
Yeah. For non-Magic, it's definitely my wife, Geneva, just because she lets me go to all these tournaments. I mean, she realizes that this is a really important thing for me and something that I really like doing. So there are, times when it's well, I'm traveling kind of a lot, but, luckily she does put up with it.
So the next question is one that people ask me all the time, which is dumb, because how could I possibly know the answer? But it's very hard to answer. You are the first class in the Hall of Fame where everyone has won a Pro Tour. And the question I get asked most often is, what does it feel like to win a Pro Tour? So just try and take yourself back to the moment, not necessarily of the winning, but when you knew you were going to win. The board state is such, your hand is such, whatever it is, where you're just I'm going to win this Pro Tour. What is that like, Luis? Kick us off.
Well,
Berlin, 2008.
So I was playing against Mate Zadokai, who's actually here since he top-8 the last Pro Tour, but we're playing the Elf Mirror in the finals, and I've started to go off. I've cast the Weird Harvest. I have all the elves. I have Glimpse going, and all I was thinking was, don't screw up, don't screw up. But, I knew I was going to win. There's not really anything either deck could do once the other deck was going off. It did feel awesome, but in the moment, it was more I actually 100% have this one. Let's try to make sure that happens.
So there was an element of sort of being frightened of it being snatched away.
Yeah, it's funny because the whole tournament I hadn't really thought that way because I'm just going off and I knew how to play the deck well enough. I'd played it hundreds and hundreds of games.
You were playing an elf combo deck, right?
Yeah, elf combo. So once you start going off, I knew what to do. But that particular one, it's this is the last time. This is me winning the Pro Tour. All right, let me just slow down a little bit. I was playing pretty fast during most of it, but I slowed down a little at the end.
Okay, Billy, we go back to 2003 to Boston.
So mine was actually pretty unique because it was a team tournament.
Indeed, yeah.
I had already won my match, so I was standing. So I was standing with Matt Lindy, and we were watching Brock Parker play his whatever it was, second or third game. I don't really remember. And there came a point where Brock had a morph out. It was a Titanic Bullvox.
Oh my lord!
And his opponent tapped out, and I knew that Brock had him dead on board. So I just waited with bated breath, thinking in my head, please just kill him.
Because you couldn't talk to your teammates.
Yeah, you couldn't talk to your teammates at the time. So I'm thinking, please just kill him, please just kill him. Then he attacked and morphed the Bullvox, and I jumped up, and yeah, it was very exciting.
Did you ever imagine that moment? Did you, was it something that you saw not just being good at the game, not just having success, but actually winning a PT?
Yeah, I actually did. I mean, honestly, I was always very confident, and I thought it was something that I'd one day achieve. And I was actually extra happy that it happened in a team tournament. I always enjoyed doing well in those more than the individual stuff.
Yeah, one of the best team names of all time, still, without doubt. The Brockefellas, fantastic. All right, Ben S., how about you? 2011, the most recent of our Pro Tour winners.
Mine was a lot more similar to Luis's. I was playing the Cobblade deck, built by Channel Fireball. Mostly, I think Josh Sutter-Layton, who's probably the best deck builder in the world now, and Kibler.
Kibler does get blamed for this one.
I was about to say, and Kibler and Brad. And, it was similar to Luis's because in Game 4 against Paul, even though I'm not going off, I have like a Baneslayer in hand, a Gideon in adjacent place. I don't remember the exact permanence, but I knew I was going to win 3 or 4 turns before I won. I mean, I think Paul even conceded before I dealt lethal, as I had the whole board, you know, just completely, you know, mucked up with these ridiculous permanents, you know?
Sure.
So like, I was kind of like, you know, I wasn't thinking don't screw it up, because it wasn't like Elves where like maybe if you misclick, you're no longer going off and you lose. I kind of knew I couldn't even screw it up, you know what I mean? Like, we're at a point where I'm at, you know, a ton of life, and I've got Gideon in play and Baneslayer in hand and all these cards, and he's playing Boros, you know? And that's not to diminish his deck, because it wasn't even a good matchup for me. You know, I was lucky to be in that position. Like, I feel like if I played Paul 100 times, he'd win over half of them, you know? But I kind of, so for me, it was like, I knew I couldn't screw it up. I knew I was going to win, and it was just like, that was like, you know, 3, 4, 5 turns before I won, so it was really a weird spot.
Did you get to enjoy it then? Did you sort of sit there going, 3 turns from winning the Pro Tour? 2 turns from winning the Pro Tour?
Well, I wasn't counting the turns. I mean, obviously I did enjoy it. I mean, Paul's a good friend and a great player, so like for me, I couldn't really super rejoice in it, because I kind of like, you know, I kind of appreciate being on both sides of it. As someone who was in his 3rd Pro Tour top 8, had lost previously twice in the top 8, you know, I felt good about it, but I wouldn't say that I was like jumping for joy. It was almost more like a relief, you know?
Okay. It's perhaps inappropriate to describe this as an accomplishment, because becoming a member of the Hall of Fame is really as a result of all your accomplishments within the game. But what does being part of the Hall of Fame mean to you? Let's start with Luis.
For me, it's more like a recognition kind of like what Magic has meant to me and how it's played a part in my life, and kind of both what I've given to it and kind of what it's given to me. So I think it goes both ways. Like, you know, I feel really honored that people believe I should be here, and they have, you know, shown that appreciation. So for me, it's more like, this is what I've been working towards, and this is like, in a lot of ways, a culmination of like, you know, the part Magic has played for me.
Mm-hmm. Billy, I think of the 3, perhaps your journey to the Hall is most interesting, because Magic is full of young people saying, what have you done for me lately? And there are a lot of people who certainly weren't playing Magic when you were winning your Pro Tour and dominating. And so a lot of your journey has been about kind of explaining Magic's history to a lot of people who are unaware. So I'm particularly thrilled that you're here and part of the Hall.
Thank you. I mean, in a sense, I think that's true. I had a lot of very, very, very respected Magic players sort of in my corner, and you know, even today, when I got up on stage and think about what's happening, it's like I look to the left and I see, you know, Reed and Owen and Kibler, and then on the right is Finkel, Ifro, and Brock, and it really is like the whole, you know, my whole life.
It's a pantheon, isn't it, really?
It's like, you know, I've known half of those people since I was 13, 14, 15, and, you know, that's what really it's all about to me, is like all the relationships I've made, the friends I've made, and just really a validation of what I've devoted most of my life to.
Sure. And Ben?
I know someone who was there back then. He was the real deal. I could tell you, like, for me, you know, I mean, I know I'm a good Magic player, but, you know, I don't think of myself as one of the best Magic players of all time, you know? I mean, I'll take that accolade in draft. Like, I am really good at draft, but, like, I'm not number 1, but, like, one of. But in playing ability, when I look at the players I'm being inducted with, you know, I think of them as, like, the greatest Magic players of all time. I remember Huey being one of the best Magic players of all time. I've seen Luis, as Raptor described in the video. He can, like, any game is going on with 3,000 permanents on turn 12, and he just looks at the board and he knows the best play. I can't do that, you know what I mean? If I looked at that board, my head would start to spin, you know? Like, I wouldn't know what to do. Sure. So, I mean, for me to be inducted into the Magic Hall of Fame, I look at the list and it's like all the people that I look up to as the best Magic players of all time, Kai and Finkel, Luis and Huey, you know, all of these people, you know? So, I mean, I don't know, that's what it's like to me. It's amazing to be here, and I mean, I consider myself just really lucky to be set in the same category as these guys.
Okay.
You know?
I don't want to make them blush too hard, but the one word that for me links all 3 of these gentlemen is the word mentor. And it's very noticeable to me that all 3 of you go a long, long way out of your way to mentor other Magic players, and not just other very talented Magic players, but I've seen you all just constantly looking at people's decks. You're between rounds, you'll look at a guy who's at his first PT. At a GP, you'll sit down with people and build. Obviously, Luis, you're all very busy with making videos and articles and running sites. What is it that makes you, all 3 of you, so determined to give back to other Magic players? So if I can start with you.
I mean, I can't speak for the other two guys, but you know, I'm pretty sure that we all love Magic so much that it's kind of hard not to want to share it with other people. Like, I really enjoy talking to other people about Magic. I know that when I was, you know, not good at Magic, other people helped me, and having people to help you is like really valuable. There's nothing better than seeing someone go from like, you know, a newer Magic player to an awesome Magic player. Like Shahar Shenhar played at our local shop in Northern California,
Right.
and I remember when Shahar was not good, and now he's insane. He's like one of the best, you know, and he won Worlds. Like that's just pretty incredible. Just me looking at Shahar 4 years ago versus Shahar today, and that's the sort of thing that I like to repeat as often as I can.
Sure. Ben, there was one of my favorite moments of the whole Worlds Week in Amsterdam was when I got to spend time with you on air, and something you said that was one of the key moments of the whole week for me. You said, I want every Magic player in the world to be the best Magic player they can possibly be, and if I can make that happen, then my Magic just got better for them being better. I was just like, wow.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know a lot of people like winning, but you know, I mean, if you're a world championship fighter, do you really enjoy going back and beating up amateurs? Like, you want to win, but you want to play against the best also. You know what I mean? And to me, like, you know, Magic is only fun if other people really understand everything going on in the game, and it's like a mental battle where we can like outmaneuver each other. You know, like Huey's an expert chess player, right? I barely know how to play chess. Huey's not going to have fun beating me in chess, you know. But in Magic, where we're both experts, I think we can have good matches and really enjoy ourselves.
Billy, how about you?
Well, for me, when I was coming up, I had, you know, the good fortune, like I said, to have a lot of Pro Tour caliber players in my local area, and I think that they, you know, and even when I got to the Pro Tour, a lot of the established players, Finkel, whomever, had a profound impact on me, and I always remember how much it meant to me when people who I respected so much did things for me. So I guess, like, I just try to pay it forward in that regard.
Yeah, because one of the abiding memories of the last Pro Tour was how utterly thrilled you were when Reed Duke won his last round match to become platinum. I mean, it was like you had won a Pro Tour.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's how I feel. I mean, I you know.
How can you not be thrilled for Reed?
Yeah. Newsflash, we have Ian Duke, Reed's brother, coming in, and I believe he has some amazingly desperate stories of what a terrible human being Reed Duke is.
I don't believe you.
I believe you may hear on air that he once didn't hold a door open for somebody.
I don't believe it.
I probably didn't see
Really?
them.
Okay, maybe it's a podcast. Maybe that's just like older brother thing, but okay. We're almost out of time because it turns out they've got some Magic to play in a little while. How would you each like to be remembered long after you've packed the cards away, which will obviously be about 20 minutes before you each die, I imagine. But how would you like to be remembered by the game, Luis?
As a great limited mastermind.
Okie doke. Go on, give me a proper answer. As a proper limited.
I think as someone who contributed to the community, whether it's through the team and through the website, and all of these things, that just something that made Magic better for more people.
Okay, Billy?
I think I'd like to be remembered as, you know, a good influence in the community and a good team player. Not in a sense of, like, you know, a team tournament player, but just a team player.
Ben.
I mean, I would like to be remembered as a great limited mastermind. I mean, I grew up going to my friends' houses and booster drafting all night, 3, 4, 5 nights a week, doing 10 drafts. You know, that's all we did all the time in South Florida. So, I mean, I do feel like, you know, that's where I can contribute to the game, and that's where I'm my sharpest.
Okay, so final question. It turns out that although we have 3 Hall of Famers, there are some divisions here because we have, as far as I can see, 2 members of Team Channel Fireball
and one enemy.
Yeah, is this like an arch enemy game? I have 2 slightly different questions, and they go like this. Ben, first question to you: do you have a constructed deck and the limited skills to get to 13-3 and make the top 8 of Sunday at this event, with a little bit of prevailing luck?
Sure, I think so. You know, like I said earlier, I think Raptor's the best deck builder in the world right now, and he pretty much built our deck, and I think it's very good.
Okay. Don't need any more than that. Billy, question for you is, do you have a constructed deck and the limited skills to go 13-3 at this event and get into the top 8 on Sunday with a little bit of prevailing wind and luck?
Yeah, I absolutely believe that I do.
Fantastic. And finally, Luis, do you have a constructed deck and the limited skills to go 12-4, finish in the top 16, and join us in the commentary booth on Sunday?
Well, I figure if I can go like 9-1 in constructed, then I have a pretty good shot at doing that.
Okay, super. All right. Well, best of luck to our 3 Hall of Famers. Fantastic to see them. Ben Stark, William Jensen, Louis Scott-Vargas, and what an honor it is to spend time with them. Guys, thank you so much, and best of luck this week.
Thank you.
And we're done, right?
Yeah, you're off. Away they go. The time is now around about 9:45. That means we're 10, 15 minutes away from draft action. And
Getting
that
this
means
thing
that
off.
pretty soon I'm expecting a Brian David Marshall to join me here on set. So, a reminder of what we're going to have this weekend. 3 days. Day 1, we begin with Theros Limited. So it's draft action. The players draft in pods of 8, so they sit round a table of 8. It's just like you would play at your local store. Seating is random, the pods go up randomly, but once you're locked into your pod of 8, you will be stuck within those 8. You can't play anyone else. You will play 3 rounds within that pod. And fundamentally, although draws can happen, what that really means is that at the end of the morning, somebody at the table will be 3-0. There'll be 3 players at 2 and 1, 3 players at 1 and 2, and somebody at every draft table will still be winless. 0 and 3 in Theros draft. Now remember, at the start of the show, we were talking with Marshall and Zach, and they said that basically the 4th loss is really, really critical. That's where you start thinking, I need a lot of luck to make top 8, to go 12 and 4 and maybe just squeak in. So if you're 0 and 3 coming out of draft, that is the end of the road for you, almost. And to be honest, it is really, really tough to get from 1 and 2 out of draft. So the first 3 rounds, absolutely huge. The way the structure of the tournament works, the further we go, the more constructed matters. We open with draft, then we go into standard. Rounds 4 through 8 today will be standard. Remember, 5 sets in standard. Return to Ravnica block, then you've also got M14 and now Theros. Theros, big set, so big impact on standard. If you get to 4 and 4, so that's an even record, 12 points or more, you get to come back on day 2. At that point, we draft again. So by the end of round 11, we've done the majority of our action is in draft format. Again, it's Theros. And again, this time, the seatings won't be random. This time, it's all based on record. So overnight leaders will all go up against each other. You'll have the 1 player, or maybe 2, who are on a perfect 8-0 record. You'll have 6 players at 7 and 1. They'll all sit down to draft together. And again, what that means is that you've maybe got an 8-0 falling to 8 and 3 at the end of the first draft of day 2. So at that point, the field kind of compresses because you find even amongst the 5 and 3s, somebody is going to climb their way up to 8 and 3 at that table. Then we go back to standard. At that point, limited is gone away. Rounds 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 are standard. And for the most part, each of those rounds is what we call single elimination, because most of the players, by the time you're at 9 and 4, you're essentially in the last chance saloon. It's single elimination magic. If you lose, you will not be coming back on Sunday. So at that point, the end of 16 rounds, the top 8 advance to Sunday action. It's standard again, and what we will have is the best 3 out of 5. Quarterfinals, semifinals, and eventually someone will play for $40,000. So that's what's coming your way over the next 3 days. I'm delighted to say that I'm about to be joined by the Pro Tour historian, Mr. Brian David Marshall, who has just had one of the best hours of your Magic year, correct?
Oh, absolutely. I am just always humbled and honored to be a part of the Hall of Fame induction ceremony every year. Just these great players who have made Magic such a part of their lives and have in turn had their lives enriched by Magic. And it's just always amazing for me to see that swell of emotion as they're sort of like their name's going to be called, as their like family, their friends, their peers are applauding them, and just go, it's very emotional.
I really hope that comes across on screen. I don't know what it's like for you at home, but the atmosphere is electric for the Hall of Fame ceremony, not least because there are 410 players who are watching this, who are about to set off on their own, hopefully 19-round journey towards a Pro Tour title that can propel them towards sitting in the front row in the suit to get the ring.
And you know what? Magic can be such a dispassionate game sometimes. In the sense that if you want to be as successful as these players are, you really need to divorce yourself from feeling too bad about that last round loss, about not drawing that land, or even drawing that land that you needed. You know, you can't get too high, you can't get too low. That's part of the formula for success, you know? And it's and so to actually just, you know, see Magic players sit there and just sort of like
peel back the hood,
just you know, just sort of like open up their arms and let that kind of wave of emotion come over them is pretty special and kind of rare in the tournament year.
For sure. The Hall of Fame is in the books and about to start round 1 with a draft. So for the next 10 minutes or so, while the players set themselves up, BDM, you and I are going to set the scene, not so much for what you should be drafting when you're on Magic Online or at your local store, but more, what are we going to see this weekend in terms of kind of what we're actually watching? So let's start with the very first thing. The players sit down at their table. We're going to have a feature table under the lights. Do the players look at who they're drafting with? Do they pay attention to that?
So you certainly, you talk to pros, and you know, they're always like, look, I open up again, that dispassion comes in, right? You know, I open up my pack, I look through it, I take objectively the best card. But I got to tell you that they always say that, but at the same time, you know, you'll hear people say, well, you know, I saw Kibler was sitting next to me, and I know he likes to draft this. Or we did a lot of play testing with Ben Stark, and Ben really, well, Ben's always going to be, you know, pretty agnostic about what he's taking. But, you know, certain players have tendencies, and I think that does factor in. But for the most part, I think your approach is you want to be, I'm just going to take the best cards, I'm going to be open to the table, or I'm going to come in having a plan, you know. Either or, but like, you know, being very definitive in what you're going to do.
Okay, so one of the first key and exciting moments is when our featured player opens their first pack.
Oh, I can't wait.
So what should we be watching out for in that first row of 14 cards?
I mean, so if I was sitting there, I'm looking for 2 cards. I'm looking for Wingsteed Rider, or I'm looking for Grey Merchant of Asphodel.
Now that's interesting because neither of those are rare or mythic.
No, those are really the 2 cards I most want to see when I open up a Theros pack to draft. I mean, obviously I'd like to see Agent of Fates in the rare slot there. I'd love to see
a Palukronos at a mythic or something.
Sure, but you know, I really like the heroic deck. I really like the Black Devotion deck.
Okay, so just to confirm, Wingsteed Rider 2/2 heroic. It gets bigger and it flies for 3 mana, 1 white, and Grey Merchant 3 black for a 2/4. But it drains life according to your devotion to black. So you put that down, you've got a Disciple of Phoenix out. That's a 4-point life swing right there.
Right. I mean, you'd love an Abhorrent Overlord. You know, you'd love a Fabled Hero.
Sure.
You know, but just, I mean, for me, when I draft, certainly I'm always looking at commons, and those are the things that you can expect to see. So I think players are thinking about Lightning Strikes. They're thinking about, you know, Grey Merchants. They're thinking about, you know, where do I take Baleful Eidolon? Where do I take Hopeful Eidolon? You know, they're thinking about the commons because you can't count on the rares being there, and you can't even count too much on the uncommons being there.
Well, no, because it's worth remembering. Just do the math on this. There are 24 packs going in the whole table. There's 3 uncommons per pack.
Have you done the math on this, Rich?
Somebody else did it for me. It had big numbers. And then, so 72 uncommons in the whole draft. So there's only like 1 and a bit. And they don't do bits in Magic. So a lot of uncommons, there'll only be 1 or sometimes just none.
Right. You can't reliably say, I will see this will get past to me.
So I won't get 3 Sea God's Revenge.
No, probably not.
Probably not. I'd settle for 1. Okay, so my next question is, let's suppose, for the sake of argument, I open my Grey Merchant of Asphodel. Wingsteed Rider would do fine as an example as well, but a card that kind of pushes me in a direction. Yeah. So I've got my Grey Merchant, let's say. I get my pack 2. There's a, I don't know, Lash of the Whip or something. So I've got a bit of black removal. Hooray. Tell me about signals and what should we be looking for in terms of what our player, our camera hero player,
Sure.
if you like, is looking at and seeing what isn't there. What are signals? How do they work?
Well, I mean, certainly if you get past a lightning strike, a Grey Merchant of Asphodel, a Wingsteed Rider, a Voyage's End, a I don't know, Voyaging Satyr maybe in green,
right,
or a Leaf Crown Dryad, like you know, that's probably a fairly, you know, if you see one of the top commons in a color, and maybe there's, you know, you can look and you can go, is there a rare gone? Is there an uncommon gone? Is there a common gone? You know, if there's another common gone, you know, if that was the first pick that your opponent to your right took, you know, and you're like, oh well, this is a pretty clear signal. If there's a common gone and Lightning Strike is still here, I should feel pretty good about being red.
Okay, so we should at home be able to watch the draft and get some sense of what we're happening upstream, if you like, to the right of our player. All right, next question. Every draft format is different in terms of the number of playable cards within the whole set, and also playable cards within each sort of color pair or archetype.
Yeah.
And the sort of phrase we use for that is how deep a format is. How far down the pick order you can go and still be playing reasonable cards. So how deep is Theros? How late in the pack are people going to get things?
I mean, I think you see playable cards coming 12th, 13th in this format. You know, like certainly 10th to 12th is very reasonable to get cards that you want in your deck. I mean, you can see cards, you can look at a pack and know that something's going to come back around the table to you if you're, you know, in a good position, and you know there are cards that you want that maybe, isn't something that other decks aren't going to want. You know, if you're a heroic deck, like, you know, some of the auras, you know, that are draw a card or have some, you know, marginal utility, then, you know, maybe they're not going to want to go into another deck, and if there's not another heroic deck.
Yeah, maybe like an Aqueous Form or a Scourge Mark or something like that.
Oh,
they
sure.
often go very late.
Yeah, Scourge Mark is a good example.
I think this format in some ways reminds me a lot of Lorwyn, in that one of the great tricks to that format was because it was tribal, there were a lot of very powerful cards that only belonged, in air quotes, to one player at the table.
I liken it a little bit more to Modern Masters.
Ah, right, okay.
I actually think it reminds me a lot of the Modern Masters draft format, in the sense that there are these, you know, these decks, and there's a lot of them, right? I mean, you can be any of the 10 guilds in this format.
So Black-Red Minotaurs, for example, is right there. You open a Kragma Warcaller and go from there.
Red-Blue Chimera Scry.
Right, Fly and Scry.
Fly and Scry. Yeah, absolutely. You can like go in any of those 10 directions.
Sure.
And there are cards and strategies and pick orders for each of those archetypes.
Okay. What do we mean by switching, and when should we be looking for our player to switch?
I don't know, like 3 or 4 cards in. I mean, you'll see it later, I think, but you really want to.
So what is it? What is switching?
I'm sorry. So switching is, again, you go Grey Merchant of Asphodel, you take a Disciple, second pick, and then you're like, wow, you know, there was a Disciple there, but I didn't see another black card.
So the black stops coming.
And then you get
in our
past a
example.
pack, and there's, you know, 2 red cards, a white heroic card, a bunch of green cards. You're like, there's no black here. Green looks open. I know, you know. All right, you know what? I'll take a green card, and maybe I'll be green-black, but maybe I'll abandon the black.
Is there an element of pure visual to that? Like you open up, like most packs are balanced at the start, so it's pretty unusual to see a pack where in your very open there is nothing from one or certainly from 2 colors. You never see a 3-color pure opened pack. But by pick 3, you can often see 5 green cards, 4 blue cards, an artifact, and 2 red cards.
It's somewhat obvious to you, and I think especially players at this level who've just drafted, you know, possibly 100 times by the time round 1 starts. You know, certainly also have a sense of what's there and what's not there.
Okay.
You know, sort of just embedded in their psyche. They're like, okay, I get it, I know.
Okay, well, we have draft covered for you here at magicthegathering.com. So many ways to enjoy the draft. We're about to go live for the first pick of the first pack. You'll get the draft viewer later on, where you'll be able to see every pick from the table we're about to see. We're going to take a look later this morning at the first pick of everyone in the draft we're about to see. So we get to see where did it all go, and if our player opens the Grey Merchant, but the player on his left opens Grey Merchant, what does that mean for the player on the left?
One of the things I'd really like to do this weekend also is take a look at some of the draft archetypes and really break those down.
Well,
and talk about how those decks work.
How about when they're building for their half hour? How about you and I do some Magic Online data? We see what people have been doing out in the real world, and we unveil all the top commons, all the top uncommons.
Wingsteed Rider!
Yes, I know. The keys to all the archetypes. And also, I want to point you in the direction of our text colleagues, because Nate Price has a fantastic piece going live with just sort of seeing almost like a corner of a draft. If you take one, what does that mean for the player in seat 2? What does he get second? What does player 3 get third? What if you change what player 1 does? And that changes what player 2 does. And that means player 3's got a completely different set of choices.
And all the information just starts tumbling downstream.
Absolutely. So that's all coming your way. And then we might play some Magic at some point. 3 rounds of draft, 5 rounds of standard. We'll do it all again tomorrow, and then a top 8 on Sunday. The Hall of Fame are in the house in their numbers, and we thank you for being in whatever part of the world you are here on this European morning on Friday. So, for Brian David Marshall, Rich Hagan saying thanks for being with us for this opening pre-game show. It's time to take you down to the booth, and for the first time, Mr. Marshall Sutcliffe.